Welcome in to 4 trade targets the Portland Trail Blazers should avoid this offseason. But first, is good sleep avoiding you? This video is brought to you by Manta Mask, the #1 sleep mask on the market. Today, we're featuring the Manta Sound Mask, which features adjustable Bluetooth speakers built into the mask. Fall asleep listening to the sounds of waves crashing on the shore. Or fall asleep to me and Derek arguing about draft prospects or something, I don't know. Or use the sound mask for some midday guided meditation, as it blocks out all light and is very comfortable. Manta has all sorts of sleep masks to fit your needs. Click the link in the description box below to check them all out, and use the promo code Uprise for a 10% discount. Thank you to Manta Mask for sponsoring this video. The first player the Blazers should avoid is Karl-Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's coming off a season in which he only played 29 games as he was limited due to injury. Injuries have been a problem with Towns the past 4 seasons. And in this past year, in 33 minutes a game, he averaged 21 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 36.6% from 3 and 57.6% from 2. The numbers are good. Offensively, Towns is extremely talented. But the Blazers' biggest problem is their defense. They were terrible defensively last season, they were terrible defensively the year before, and the year before that, and I think the year before that as well. The Blazers have not had a respectable defense in a really long time, and spending assets to acquire Karl-Anthony Towns, which it would take a lot to get him, doesn't fix the defense whatsoever. Towns is a subpar defender, so subpar that the Timberwolves tried to move him to the power forward spot next to Rudy Gobert and prayed that Rudy Gobert would fix everything. And while Rudy Gobert seems to have lost a little bit, it didn't fix anything for the Timberwolves. Karl-Anthony Towns is just not a good enough defender. If the Blazers are going to make a trade where they trade out the 3rd pick or trade out assets, it has to be for somebody who can help them out on the defensive end. Obviously, you're not going to give up the 3rd pick on top of other assets for anything less than a 2-way star. The Blazers need a guy that can play both ends of the court in that regard, but defense is extremely important, and spending assets to trade for Karl-Anthony Towns, who would likely become their center, the backline of their defense, and is a bad defensive player, makes no sense, because the Blazers gave up the most shots at the rim last season in the entire NBA because they cannot contain dribble penetration. Having guys constantly driving the lane with Karl-Anthony Towns being the rim protector just sounds like a recipe for disaster. Now, maybe Chauncey Billups in such a scenario would have Jeremy Grant guard 4s and guard off-ball players more primarily, and therefore Grant could help Towns out around the rim. However, last year he didn't do that at all. He put Jeremy Grant on guards defensively, and Jeremy Grant, who struggles getting through screens, got screened out of almost every pick and roll, and that did contribute to a lot of the dribble penetration and shots at the rim for opposing offenses. With that being said, that's a perfect segue into the #2 trade target that the Blazers should not trade for, and it's going to be a surprising one, but it's Pascal Siakam. Siakam's a guy I've liked for a long time here. I've made videos talking about how I want the Portland Trail Blazers to trade for him. But after getting Jeremy Grant in last year's offseason, Pascal Siakam doesn't make sense anymore. He's not the type of defender that the Portland Trail Blazers need. I'm more on board with Siakam than a Karl-Anthony Towns option because Siakam can contribute on both sides of the floor. But not only do the Blazers need defense, they need a specific type of defender. They need a guy that can guard guards and wings and get through screens and be the primary point of attack defender for the Blazers defense. That is not Siakam's best role defensively. He's a little bit closer to Jeremy Grant. There are a lot of Blazer fans that want to move Jeremy Grant to the small forward position because his rebounding is so porous at the power forward spot, and getting Siakam would do that. However, you're still playing Jeremy Grant to his weaknesses defensively, where he's getting screened out of plays, and the defense is probably a little bit better because you do have Siakam at that 4 spot to help out with some of the rim protection, but it's nowhere near enough to get this team truly competitive. So trading the assets that it would require to get Siakam, and supposedly it'd be a lot, because Raptors GM Masai Ujiri wants to absolutely fleece everyone. There's a reason why OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and impending free agent Fred VanVleet weren't traded at this past year's trade deadline, even though the Raptors were floundering. Masai Ujiri has way too high of an asking price. So for Portland to meet that asking price, give up all the assets that it would probably take to get Siakam, and then not fix their defense in the process because Siakam's not the right type of defender, doesn't make a ton of sense. Offensively, I like Siakam's playmaking a lot. I like what he can do with the ball in his hands. Off the ball, I don't think he's great. He only shot 32% from 3 last year. So the question would be, if Siakam got to play next to Damian Lillard, could he function well off the ball? Would his three-point percentage return to around 37%, which is what it was when he played next to Kawhi Leonard, or would he still be a below-average three-point shooter that's not much of a floor spacer? Because bringing in a guy who doesn't fix the specific defensive problems that the Blazers have, but then also is a little questionable as to how he'd fit off Damian Lillard because he's a subpar shooter the past 3 years, just doesn't make sense in terms of giving up assets for that. The third trade target that the Blazers should not go after is DeAndre Ayton, who seemed to have quit on the Phoenix Suns during this past year's playoffs, got benched in crunch time for Jock Landale, is on a max contract, which is definitely an overpayment, and hasn't really improved the past 3 or 4 years. There's questions about his work ethic. Apparently he stays up and loses sleep because he plays so many video games. I mean, there's just like a lot of weird things with DeAndre Ayton, and the Blazers don't need a guy that's mentally soft. And in my opinion, DeAndre Ayton is mentally soft. And in general, the Blazers need guys with an edge. Guys that bring a certain level of competitiveness on a night in, night out basis, and unfortunately, I just don't think DeAndre Ayton provides that. He's good at finishing around the rim when he gets there, but he elects to shoot a lot of mid-range and finesse shots, which he does not shoot a good enough percentage on, in my opinion, to justify how many he takes. But because he pretty much only shoots high-quality shots around the rim, his rim finishing numbers look very good, and that's why a lot of fans want to trade for him. Jusuf Nurkic has been a subpar finisher around the rim for a center, and Blazer fans want something new. But efficiency-wise, Ayton and Nurkic were actually very close. Nurkic shoots the 3-ball better. Ayton's not a 3-point shooter, and Nurkic evolved his game in that regard last season. Nurkic is also a better passer, a better screen setter, and defensively, I think it's more comparable than people think. Ayton is athletic, so I think people just assume that every athletic big is a good defender, but he didn't seem to have much of an impact there defensively. Jokic torched him in the playoffs. I think Nurkic gets underrated defensively. He's in the right position more often than not, and that's a big part of the battle as a center. Now, if I had to choose who's a better center right now, I'd probably still go with Ayton, but in terms of Nurkic's and Ayton's contract, the fact that Ayton is making twice as much as Nurkic makes Nurkic the better contract, the better value in my opinion. And given that the Phoenix Suns would probably want assets back for DeAndre Ayton, on top of having to throw Nurkic in the trade in order to match salary, along with Nasir Little and maybe another piece, it just doesn't make any sense for the Blazers. It doesn't solve their perimeter defense. It doesn't really solve their rebounding. Nurkic and Ayton are equal rebounders. That was another problem last season. And Nurkic has some chemistry with Damian Lillard, some synergy with him. He's a better short roll playmaker, sets great screens, which helps Dame get space on pick and roll. Ayton is kind of average in my opinion, just based off watching him. It just makes no sense to go after DeAndre Ayton and spend assets to do so. It really wouldn't change anything with this Blazer team, and they just don't have the assets, or the money, or the finances, or the pocketbook, Jody Allen. They just don't have the means to go after DeAndre Ayton and make it make sense. And the fourth and final trade target that the Blazers should avoid this offseason is DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan and Damian Lillard are cool with each other, so the number one reason to get DeMar DeRozan would be to just simply make Damian Lillard happy, and there is a chance that DeRozan wouldn't require as much as the other 3 guys on this list, but what does DeMar DeRozan fix? There's a constant theme with these videos, and I made a video a while ago talking about the 2 main things the Blazers need to fix this offseason. I think it's pretty simple. Whoever the Blazers spend assets to bring in via trade needs to fix certain issues. DeMar DeRozan doesn't fix anything. He's a subpar defensive player. He does not help the Blazers defensively whatsoever, so he's kind of in the Karl-Anthony Towns tier. But then unlike Towns, DeRozan's not a good 3-point shooter. He's not good playing off the ball. He shot 32% from 3 last year. For his career is a 29% 3-point shooter. He's a guy who needs the ball in his hands to be effective. He's also 33 years of age. He'll be 34 before next season starts, so he's probably going to start declining in the next year or 2, and giving up the future to get a guy who's declining doesn't help the defense, doesn't really fit offensively because he's not a floor spacer, doesn't play off the ball, so he's not going to play off Dame well. How does that make any sense for the Portland Portland Trail Blazers. I feel like a lot of people, when they discuss trades or think about trades, they just think about getting the biggest name possible who averaged the best stats possible, and they disregard fit. I don't know if people are looking at 2K and just trying to get the highest overall rated players possible, but a lot of times that's what it feels like, and that's why I make these videos, because you have to consider fit, you have to consider role, you have to consider how certain skill sets mesh with each other on a team when you're building it. And the targets on this list don't really make sense for those reasons. DeMar DeRozan, he's a solid player, would make Dame happy, but I mean, I think it's just pretty clear cut and simple why he would not fit on this team and why the Blazers should not go after him. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think of these 4 trade targets down in the comment section below. Let me know what you agree and disagree on. Let me know if there's any targets that should be added to this list as well. I love reading your guys' thoughts. Once again, thank you to Mask for sponsoring this video. Check out the link in the description box below with the promo code Uprise for 10% off. Get yourself a sound mask or a cooling mask or any sort of mask that they got over there. Shout out to them. And with that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.